Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Each May, we observe National Military Appreciation Month, a time to honor our military and the brave service members and veterans who make our freedom possible, and commend the organizations that in turn acknowledge and support them. Today, we will focus on the work of Vets to Vets United, VTVUI, an award-winning Durham-based nonprofit organization that pairs service, therapeutic, companion, and emotional support animals that would otherwise be euthanized, with U.S. military veterans experiencing physical disabilities, traumatic brain injury, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and depressions. We will meet Vietnam veterans and VTVUI representatives Bill Dixon and Dan Portero and their devoted pups, Tank and Bailey, respectively. We're going to hear their survival stories and gain a new appreciation for the priceless gift of freedom and learn about the tireless work being done by the VTVUI and to improve the lives of veterans. Before we go further into today's program, I would like to do some housekeeping. As always, keep your microphones on mute throughout the entire session. Please send all of your questions to the chat room. The chat room will be monitored, and we will work to make sure all of your questions are answered in an orderly fashion. This session will be recorded, and you will be able to view this program later on demand. Speaking of on-demand recordings, you will be notified soon of today's program's availability and all of our recent programs when they are ready to be viewed. And we will have some new programming coming soon, and we will look forward to having you at those programs. I'm going to turn the program over to Terry Westbrook, Assistant Secretary to North Carolina Department of Military and Veteran Affairs. Assistant Secretary Westbrook.
Weedy, thank you so much for that introduction. I am Terry Westbrook, the Assistant Secretary for Veteran Affairs over at the North Carolina Department of Military and Veteran Affairs. Our department's mission is to support both the reserve and uniformed active duty military personnel and their families, military installations and communities, and military veterans and their families that reside in North Carolina. North Carolina Department of Military and Veteran Affairs seeks to provide timely and responsive engagement to enhance North Carolina's current military and veteran-friendly environment. In addition, the NCDMVA also seeks to foster and promote business, technology, transportation, education, economic development, and healthcare for all of those above communities. Lastly, the NCDMVA works to accomplish these services by providing assistance and coordination between the federal government, the state of North Carolina, its political subdivisions, and our collaborative and supportive agencies. We deliver this mission through providing a staff that is fully trained in working with the United States Department of Veteran Affairs, advocating for award of earned benefits to veterans, as well as fostering relationships and collaborating through the various veteran service organizations throughout North Carolina to develop additional services and benefits that enhance our veterans' life requirements in the state. Additionally, our connection to the military bases in North Carolina, both active duty and reserve component bases, provides a conduit to state government that identifies infrastructure opportunities and develop those in support of delivering the quality of life requirements that our military needs in order to continue to execute their mission to protect and serve and defend the Republic. In closing, remember that the NCDMVA is here to support our service members, veterans, and their families. Our governor continually refers to North Carolina as the most military and veteran-friendly state in the nation, and it is our duty, our privilege, and our honor to be the agency that answers this pledge for the governor. Now I'd like to introduce you to your panelists for today. First off, Bill Dixon. Bill is a U.S. Army veteran, chairman of the board for Veterans to Veterans United. He has served or is affiliated with several veteran service organizations, including Vietnam Veterans of America, North Carolina State Council, Commander of the American Legion, Post 297, Vice President of the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 530, which is in Durham, Veterans of the Foreign War Post 8466 in Wake Forest. North Carolina Vietnam Veterans Incorporated, advisor to the North Carolina Department of Military and Veteran Affairs, representative for the North Carolina Veterans Council and the Wake County Veterans Council, North Carolina Vietnam Veterans Incorporated past president, Wake County Veterans Council past president, North Carolina State Veterans Council delegate and member of the Governor's Working Group. Bill also serves the Greater Triangle Veterans and Military Support Group, the Veterans Administration as a panel advisor, and the AARP Veterans Committee. He's a speaker for lessons of Vietnam at schools and has received numerous awards and recognition, including the Vietnam Veterans of America Award. He earned an associate's degree in architectural drafting from the W.W. Holding before joining the U.S. Army and serving in Vietnam. Bill resides in Raleigh with his wife of 58 years, Mary Lane, and his loyal service and therapy dog, Tank. Bill's desire is to see Vets United grow to serve even more veterans. On a personal note, I've worked with Bill several times. He's passionate about veterans. He's knowledgeable about veterans. He's connected to many organizations that we do work with. And I have also got a personal knowledge of Tank. He's been around me numerous times, and he's never barked once. So I guess that means he's okay with me. So that's Bill. Next, I'd like to introduce Dan Portero. Dan is also a U.S. Army veteran. He's also a member of the board of directors of Vets to Vets United. He was raised on a tobacco farm in the Piedmont area of North Carolina. Graduated from Ledford High School and served in the Army, completing a tour of duty in Vietnam with the 1st Signal Brigade and the 101st Airborne Division. Dan earned her bachelor's degree in medical technology at Western Carolina, married Kathy Stutz, whom he met at Western, worked for Durham County General Hospital as a lab technician, then earned a master's degree at NC State University. He worked as the chemistry supervisor at Durham County Hospital, which is now Duke Regional, for 8 years. Then as an applications chemist for Beckman Instruments Incorporated for 18 years. He's also worked in the field of pharmaceuticals with several major manufacturers and as a driver's license examiner with North Carolina DMV, retiring in 2014. Dan has written 2 books. First, titled Second Son, Fortunate One, is a memoir. His second is titled An Unexpected Journey. He and his wife celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary last August and have 3 children and 7 grandchildren. He was diagnosed in 2019 with PTSD and has moved in and out of the mental health system with the VA until it was suggested that he try getting a service dog. In 2020, he connected with Vets to Vets United and as a result, found his forever support animal, Bailey. Dan hopes to continue his stalwart support and service to Vets United. So ladies and gentlemen, I give you Bill Dixon and Dan Portero. So, and I guess finally, I need to turn this over to James Harris, who will be your moderator for this event.
Make sure that mute button's off. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope all is well. Thank you for that brief introduction. There's a quote from Winston Churchill that reads, never was so much owed by so many to so few. And as a 23-year military retiree myself, I know the sacrifice that countless men and women have made. So to the members of the panel, I just want to first say thank you for your sacrifices. Thank you for your valor, for the things you carry, for protecting us, and for defending our rights. Thank you for your courage, your strength, and the dedication to keeping us safe. And lastly, let me say from one veteran to another, and specifically to the veterans on the panel, but to any of my fellow veterans on the call, simply put, thank you so much for your service. Again, my name is James Harris, and I'm the lead employee relations human resource consultant here at the North Carolina Office of State Human Resources. And I've been given the awesome opportunity to have a conversation with these two true American heroes. So we just have a series of questions that we're going to ask just to guide the conversation. And I'll be asking them to both Bill and Dan. I'll start with you, Bill, if that's okay. And I know we heard it in your bio, but it's always good to hear it from the person. So could you tell us just a little bit about your military service?
Well, I was Vietnam 67 to 68. Went through the Tet Offensive of 68. I came back, was assigned to Fort Hood, Texas, and then I came home and tried to put Vietnam away out of my way, and I did for 20 some years. And I started seeing some people at the state fair that had were selling shirts, and they were Vietnam veterans of 3 years. I'd walk by and look at them, but stand at a distance. And finally, I walked up to them and stuck out my hand. And next thing I know, I'm a member, president about 12 different times during the years, and got involved in speaking in schools. And then it just kept growing from there.
I noticed you say you spent some time at Fort Hood.
Yes, I spent some time at Fort Hood. It's nothing but scrub pines and cows, if you probably already know if you were there.
Well, I know. I was at Fort Hood from in 2005 to 2009, I want to say. So I'm very familiar with what they call it, the Great Place.
Yes, they talk about Vietnam. Well, Killeen was just as bad, if not worse.
Indeed, you did not want to be caught after hours down there on Rancier.
No, no.
Thank you for that experience. Dan, could you, as a follow-up question, could you tell us a little bit about your military service? You on mute.
Dan, unmute yourself. Yeah.
There you go. How's that?
Leave it, Charlie, as they say.
I went into the Army after a year of college. I dropped out of college after my first year. And of course, your draft deferment changes drastically from student to eligible for the draft. So when I went in, took, I can vividly remember telling my mom, I have to go down to Charlotte. You can pick me up at the bus station when I call you tonight when I get back. And I was in High Point, so I took the bus down to Charlotte to the AFE station down there, and they tested us on a whole bunch of stuff. And I scored really high on a flight aptitude test called the FAST test. My FAST scores were really high. I don't know why. I've never flown before, but ended up getting inducted into the Army that day. So when I called home that night, I told my mom, don't worry, coming to the bus station to pick me up. They're flying us out to Fort Polk, Louisiana, first thing in the morning. I ended up going to helicopter flight school at Fort Walters, Texas. I was going to be a Huey pilot. But at that point in time, the military was trying to get the South Vietnamese Army regulars more involved in the fighting. So they came into our warrant officer flight class of 30, and they took 28 of us out of the class and replaced us with South Vietnamese Army officers that took our seats in flight school. So I became very close to becoming a helicopter pilot, but it didn't work out. And I think it was God's plan to send me in another direction. So I ended up with the 1st Signal Brigade, shipped over to Vietnam, and was stationed from 70 to 71 when I did my time in Vietnam. I was stationed with the 1st Signal Brigade in Phu Lam, which was a switching station just outside of Saigon, east of Saigon, in a little hamlet called Cho Lan. Not long after that, my CO came in and said, I'm shipping you up north to assign you to the 101st Airborne Division to assist in Lansom 719, which was a mission that was actually the South Vietnamese invasion of Laos. So that's where I got my first taste of what it was like to be in a war. So I ended up, oddly enough, going back to Phu Lam my last 30 days in country, and I ETS'd out of Vietnam on 6 August 1971. And I came home and fulfilled a promise I made to my mother that if I lived, I would come back and finish school. So I went back to school on what was then called the GI Bill. And there is where I met my wife, Kathy. Um, and we celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary in August, coming up on 51 this coming August. So it's been a wonderful life as far as I'm concerned with respect to finding her. She has done so much for me, helping me when I came home and helping me through the years um, until it got to a point where I recognized or realized that I needed more professional help, and I had to stop trying to um, figure things out for myself. Uh, I thought I could handle it, but the VA mental health system turned out to be a godsend. And it was during a time when the VA was taking a lot of hits for bad service. But I can tell you right now, my experience with them has been nothing but positive. They were all over me, like ducks on June bugs. It was just amazing the amount of support and help I received, and went through three therapists over there, and finally one suggested, I think a service dog might be good for you. And oddly enough, I had just heard Dr. Morris speak at a civic organization function about 3 weeks earlier. So her organization was fresh on my mind. So when he handed me a sheet of paper with these names of these organizations that help veterans with service animals, Vets to Vets United was the second name on the list. So I said, well, this was the one I'm going to check out. So I called Dr. Morris, and I got hooked up with Bailey. And that was about 3 years ago. So Bailey and I've been together for almost 3 years. Um, Bailey is coming up on 7 years of age. So she's been a sweetheart of a dog, been a great companion, um, and just can't say enough good things about the organization and their mission to save rescue dogs and to improve the lives of veterans, one dog and one veteran at a time.
Thank you so much. And I would tell you several things that you said resonated with me because again, it's easy for for us that are serving just to do our duty, but sometimes we fail to realize that we are not the only ones serving. That our family actually takes that ride with us and experiences a lot of things, or the byproducts of a lot of things that we experience. So thank God for your wife to be there with you later to help guide you through it and actually help you cover that blind spot that you didn't see. And obviously that really had a significant impact on your life moving forward. So thank you so much for that story.
James, by the way, Dan didn't mention it, but he goes to the VA hospital with Bailey on a regular basis. So he shares Bailey at the VA hospital on a regular basis. So
outstanding. I would tell you that's great. I have a little dog that's not a service dog, but I really wish I could get her into the program because she actually gives me a lot of the PTSD that I have right now just for her. But she's such a small little thing. So
One
thank
of,
you.
yeah, one of the things that Vets to Vets United is doing for the service person and their animals, the training that you receive at Vets to Vets United. Uh, it's a 2 year training program, and it's very intense. And when you finish the training, your animal is not only qualified to become a service dog, they're also qualified through another organization called Pet Partners as a therapy animal. So they got a dual certification as a service animal and a pet therapy animal. So that is how the VA hospital one day called me, and they got my information that Bailey was a therapy dog and wanted to know if I'd be interested in being a therapy team in the emergency room. So we started visiting weekly, once a week over in the emergency room department and just going through the emergency room with Bailey, meeting all these veterans. That was a two-way street, to tell you the truth. That was good for me. It was good for the people we met. It was good for Bailey. So we're still doing that today. Matter of fact, this week I've got an appointment to go over to the VA and participate with them in making a video of their geriatric emergency room department procedures for older veterans.
That's outstanding. So, and thank you for sharing us that story about Bailey. So Bill, could you let us know a little bit about Tank?
Hey, come here. Oh,
Oh, there he is.
Tank is a Rottweiler, and I've heard them say that if they could clone Tank, they'd be Rats Vets would really be on the ball. He has just been a natural. People talk about Rottweilers all the time. He's the most loving, sweetest dog in the entire world. He has changed my life, my family's life. I was married 3 years when I went to Vietnam, and so my wife served just like I did, differently, except I was in country and she was here. Sometimes it was harder on her because she'd hear where there was an attack, and I wouldn't even know about it until I got a letter from her saying that this particular area where I was supposed to be was under attack. But so he has been a whole lot to all of us. Vets to Vets it's kind of strange. I was at a Vietnam Veterans of America meeting, and Dr. Morris came in to do a demonstration, and she happened to bring Tank with her. And I fell in love with Tank right there, but he was scheduled for another veteran who had moved out of state. So I asked for Tank and got Tank because I had already met him. We do a lot of demonstrations so that we can get the veteran word out to the veterans. As far as I'm concerned, Vets to Vets United is the best system going any place. There is no one more dedicated to veterans and dogs than Dr. Terry Marsh. Her entire life is Vets to Vets United. She just happens to be out of town right now. She's taking her first vacation in 12 years. As chairman of the board, to get an email from her at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning is not unusual. I don't know when she sleeps, but she is just totally, her life is Vets to Vets. So that's how I got Tank, and Tank is quite a dog. We were at the Veterans Benefit Fair, and everywhere I'd go, everybody says, "Hi Tank, hi Tank." Even the raiders from upstairs were coming down and says, "I remember Tank from last year. Can I pet him?" And being he's a therapy dog as well as my service dog, he loves to be petted. He loves somebody to give him some vanilla ice cream. But he stays with me. If I move, he moves. He's my shadow.
I got to take this opportunity to introduce Bailey. My sweet Bailey girl is a mix between a boxer and a beagle. And the hardest thing about training Bailey was, I still can't get her to do it, is keep her nose off the ground. She's got too much beagle DNA inside her to keep her nose off the ground, but she'll get on a scent, she'll stay on it. I've learned just to let her run it till she's satisfied that she's running as far as she wants to. But she's in and out of her kennel this morning. She's a little worn out, so I'm letting her rest and sort of kick back and take it easy today. Say hello to Bill.
Hey, Bailey. Tank said, "Hey." James, these dogs, when you you don't have the vest on, they're dogs. A Tank has a football he loves to play with. He runs and jumps. You put that vest on, he knows he's working, and it's a totally different dog. And that's part of the training. We as I said, we're the best thing going. It's the only organization I know of that puts a veteran with a rescue dog, trains the veteran for 2 years, and Vets to Vets furnishes everything. The veteran pays nothing.
Oh, wow.
When we put a dog and a veteran together, we give the veteran a cage, a dog bed, a water bowl, a food bowl, harnesses, pet supplements, and toys. And throughout the whole process, we furnished veterinarian care which is our most biggest expense. Now Dan has got a veterinarian, and I have a veterinarian that sponsors Bailey and Tank as long as they're alive. So that's that helps out a whole lot. But food supplements through training, the pet partners, it costs to be able to take their test, which is an extensive test. Vets to Vets pays for that. In other words, nothing the veteran and the dog needs that Vets to Vet does not take care of. So
that's not
100%.
program.
A service dog like Bailey and Tank would probably run between $45,000 and $60,000. Veteran gets it for nothing. We do ask them during their time of training to volunteer their time 2 hours a month. We feel like they give back because it's they need some skin in the game. So we ask them to volunteer when they can. But I can tell you, like with me, and I would imagine with Bailey, with Dan also, in the beginning, it's impossible for a veteran because they can't. I didn't like being in crowds. I mean, the crowds just got all over me. And with Tank there, he gets between me and the crowd. So now I believe in what they did for me. That's the reason I'm on the board. So Tank and I do a lot of personal appearances and so forth, just for that reason, that we are being able to grow that much, to be able to get out and talk to other veterans and so forth, because we have a waiting list. But I tell everybody, go ahead and sign up. Some people who want a service dog do not realize they got to be fed, they got to be walked, they got to be brushed. Oh, that I ain't got time for all that, so they drop out sometimes. But if they stay in there, it will definitely change their lives and their families' lives, and it changes the community. This is a person who is willing to give back because he is trained as a therapy dog team. It's not just Tank is a therapy dog. We're a therapy dog team. We're a team wherever we go. And Dr. Morris's father was a Tuskegee Airman. He was a pilot whose plane crashed during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Her sister was the first woman pilot to graduate from Tuskegee School. And I believe, if I remember correctly, her mother was just recently inducted into the North Carolina Hall of Fame. She was the first female Harlem Globetrotter.
Wow.
Her brother is a cardiologist, and she was a research veterinarian, and she shut everything down and started this organization. And in the beginning, she had to have boarders in her house just to pay her bills. So that's how committed she is to this organization. And that's why Dan and I are here, along with other board of members that Dan and I have gone through the program. We've seen what it's done for us, and we want to do the same thing for other veterans. And that's why we're on the board. Doing this kind of talk.
Yeah.
Sorry, go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, I'll just add a little bit to what Bill has said already. Bill and I have worked several events representing Vets to Vets United. And as a result of that, Tank and Bailey have bonded. And whenever we get together, those two dogs are just, they're just good friends. Like to being around each other's company. And I just want to give a shout out to my veterinarian, which is North Paul Animal Hospital here in North Durham on Guest Road. They adopted Bailey and I as their veteran pup team. And of course, Vets to Vets United is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. So any expense the vet incurs taking care of Bailey, they write it off as a business tax expense. So it's good business for them. They're helping us. They're helping a rescue animal, and they're helping a veteran. They provide, like Bill said, all the necessary shots, vaccinations, wellness checkups, and that sort of thing. So it's a great relief, and their staff is just amazing with Bailey. Just wanted to give them a shout out because they've done a lot, and I'd like to see more veterinary hospitals and clinics, reach out to Vets United and offer their services to different veterans and pup teams, so they too can experience that that kind of help. It just takes a weight off of my mind to know that Bailey is taken care of medically.
Vets to Vets is basically in the triangle. What we have people from all over wanting to come through our training, but training is 2 hours a week. Professional training. We have 5 volunteer trainers. So what one of our future thing is to have our own training place. Right now we meet at Friendly Civitan Club in Durham. So we're trying to get up an apartment or something like that, that someone who's out of town or has a wheelchair, whatever, that could come for training for a couple of weeks, stay there, and then go home and practice what they learned, and then come back in a month or two and get more training and so forth. So that's one of our down the road things. But right now, just keeping the food and medicine and toys and all the other so forth that the dogs need and the veterans needs is takes basically all we've got to. Because
Yes,
we're always out trying to beat the bucket, going, hey, we're the best thing going around, and let's help veterans, and we need some money.
yeah, exactly. I mean, if we had a dream, Bill said that our dream would be right now to have our own training facility where we could accommodate more veterans and pup teams, especially those that have to travel over 3 hours to get to a training session. And that's probably a multi-million-dollar dream. So if anybody out there is rubbing shoulders with Jeff Bezos or any of these other folks that want a good place to invest for a tax break for their billions of dollars, we'll gladly accept that.
We probably could open it. We'll probably open that up by the time Kernersville is open.
Indeed. So in that vein, though, if we have any of our listeners that wanted to get involved and support Vets to Vets, how would they do that?
Well, they can go online. They can go on Facebook. They can go online. Vets to Vets United. Just make sure you add the word United to it. And you can go on there and find out different events that we're involved with. Like I said, we were there for the Veterans Benefits. We will be at the Veterans Stand Down in September. So any Veterans Benefits, anything that's going with veterans, we're there.
That website, by the way, is vetstoVetsUnited.org.
Org.
And you just go there and there's a place to donate there.
And find out more information about us and so forth. So
We'll definitely get that put out into the chat. And it seems like you got have a large reach, especially with the veterans who are taking part and want to begin involved in the service. So can you share some examples of how other veterans have benefited from Vets to Vets?
well, not using names, but we have an Iraqi war veteran who had post-traumatic stress pretty severe. He hardly came out of the house. He happened to have another Rottweiler. He went through the program, and now he and his wife travel. Anytime before, if you wanted to talk to him, you had to talk to him through his wife. Now he's out moving around, getting back in the community, traveling, doing different things and so forth. And to seeing the growth and how it's changed his life is just phenomenal. Recently, I went to Wake Tech during the exams for the military group there. And while I was there talking, this young girl walks in and sits down with Tank. And the whole time I'm there, she and Tank are on the floor talking. And she says, I'm going to walk him to the car. She didn't ask me. She said he was going to walk him to the car. So she took him out to my truck and put him in the truck. And then she talked about how depressed she was that particular day with exams and everything, and how much difference it had made to her. We have a young lady now who had she has a full-size poodle. And she's traveling all over now with the poodle, and it just so much has changed so many of them's life and so forth. Sometimes we have some of the people who come back that have graduated years ago. In fact, two of our board members one of them was in the beginning class 12 years ago, well, 10 years ago. He was in the class and he's still on the board because that's how much he believes in the organization. We have one member of our board that had a dog, but then his wife was allergic to it, so he had to make a tough decision, wife or dog, and he chose wife. So he didn't even have a dog now, but he's still very, very active. In fact, he is the associate chairman of the board. So then you got some more veterans that you can tell about.
I'm just sitting here thinking, um, how many teaching opportunities I've had since I've had Bailey, with respect to service dogs. The general public sometimes, um, they just don't understand, that a service dog is not a pet. Um, it is a needed support animal for a veteran or an individual that has the service dog. But people in the public will come up and won't even ask for permission. They just come right up to your dog and start petting your dog and everything. And I know we've all seen on television lately these horrible, horrible instances of dog attacks, and most of them are children. I was at the beach recently, and a young uh, girl, a 5 or 6 year old girl, came running up to Bailey and wrapped her arms around her head and hugged her and pulled her up to her face like Bailey was a stuffed animal. So I had to immediately, you know, say, you can't do that. Um, and I used it as a teaching moment. I said, young lady, I said, please don't ever put your face directly in the face of a dog. I said, you never know what that dog is thinking or what it'll do. I said, it might bite you in the face. I said, that would be an unpleasant. And her parents were just very appreciative that I took the time to explain that to her. Uh, these are real live animals. They're not like stuffed toys that you can play with. Um, Bailey has, when you go through the service dog training program, your service dog is trained to do three specific functions for you. And if someone is questioning you about your service dog or its legitimacy, service dogs are protected under the federal right, ADA, Americans for Disabilities Act, and they can't be denied entrance if they're wearing their service dog vest and they're ready to go in there. You don't have to provide anything in terms of paper or registration or whatever um, to get into a public access with a service dog. Uh, but it's just gives you a time to teach the public how to react. Bailey's three functions for me. What she does for me, she guards my back. That's one of the things she does. Acts like a buffer, like Bill said, in large crowds, and she'll instinctively walk behind my backside and make sure nobody sneaks up on me. Her second task is if we all go to the doctor now, one of the first things the doctor asks you is, "Have you fallen lately?" And my standard response is, "Well, not on purpose." So, uh, one of the other things Bailey does for me is if I fall and I can't get up, or if I'm hurt, she's trained to go get help, and she'll go to the nearest individual and just pester them to death she brings them back to me. The third function that she provides is if my wife and I are out of town for an extended period of time, uh, my house has been broken into a couple of times. So what Bailey does is she goes into the house and she searches each room. She clears the area and makes sure there's no one in there that shouldn't be in there. And then she'll come back to the door with an all clear. So those are the three functions my service dog does for me. And in addition to all the other numerous things,
The dog is trained to what the veteran needs. We had a lady that was in wheelchair. He would help her dress and undress, pick up her stuff off the floor. He could open the door, go into the kitchen, open up the refrigerator door, and take her a drink. That's how they were trained. With me, nightmares still. I've been known to fall out of bed fighting in a nightmare on numerous occasions. We actually put out a different smell before the nightmare starts.
Hmm.
It's like a diabetic dog. They actually know when a person's getting low in sugar. Uh, we train the dogs. What you do is you wear a piece of T-shirt, and for the night that you have uh, bad dreams, you put them in a container separate, and then good nights you put that in a separate, and you take the two and mix them up, and the dog learns which ones are which, so they can actually let you know and wake you up before the nightmares. That's the kind of things that you can teach the dog, but it's fit to the therapy dog part is through a third party pet partners, but it's adjusted to what the veteran needs. Each veteran has a different need. All of us need the support that we get from the dog. I mean, totally loving support you get from the dog. I tell people all the time, put your wife in the trunk, ride down a dirt road, bumpy, and come back, and then put your dog in the trunk, ride down the road and bumpy, and come back and see which one's going to love up on you. And it's going to always be your dog.
Indeed. Great point. Great point. Um, so I would, and that's very insightful. Um, so can you tell us, and like I said, you give us a lot of information today, but what does best vets personally mean to you? If you had to summarize it, what does vets personally mean to you?
Well, I can tell you, for me, it's pretty much my life. I got to the point at one time between depression and post-traumatic stress. I used to go out in my car, sit and drive my car out someplace and sit and cry. And the pain, the physical pain, I mean, it's a mental thing, but the physical pain is excruciating. And you start thinking of ways to get rid of it, whether it's a gun or driving across a train track or whatever. I've been married 58 years, and between it's helped me and my wife get back our marriage, and helps me keep on going. And
I'm going to go
I've got
ahead
a
and jump.
mission now to share with as many veterans as I can, because of he saved my life.
I'm going to go ahead and jump in here and dovetail that information that Bill just gave you. Uh, when I came home from Vietnam and met my wife, Kathy, um, she knew she was getting damaged goods from day one. I had some issues back then she helped me with tremendously. And everybody's PTSD experience is different. That's why every service dog is different. As Bill said, they're trained to meet the individual needs. Um, it's just it's just amazing what Vets to Vets has done for me in the years. I had a therapist tell me, I said, I don't understand this. You're telling me I've coped with all these issues and had these self-coping mechanisms worked out for all these years with the help of my wife, and I'm just now getting to a point where, I'm thinking about suicide all the time. I got a house full of weapons. I'm a very proactive Second Amendment person. I had more guns than I needed, and I was looking for excuses to buy more. Um, I had to have a his and hers Mossberg 590 shotgun. I had to have one for my wife and one for me. But it was, I had to have the Shockwave, little short sawed-off shotgun. In addition, about 7 or 8 other guns that I kept in the house. Um, and it was one evening, like Bill said, these dreams, they get so real and realistic. You wake up in the middle of the night and you find yourself holding a 9mm with a round in the chamber, and you don't know how you got it, and what you're going to do with it. So one of the things I attribute to the VA mental health system is that, they were very on top of that. Do you own any weapons? I said, well, yeah, I do. And they were very, very encouraging to me. He says, those can pose a problem for someone like yourself. Yeah, they become weapons of opportunity. As Bill's mentioned, you're looking for railroad crossings, you're looking for ways to end this, put an end to it. you're not thinking about your family and what effect it's going to have on them. So I was very fortunate. I went back to the gun dealers that I did business with, and every single one of them said, we'll buy this back from you for what you paid for it. And I was just floored. I said, yeah, okay, good. So it gets the gun out of my house, makes my wife happy. But now I've got a solid oak axe handle. I'd be hard to beat myself to death with one of those. But I'm not totally defenseless. But it's one of those things where, like Bill said earlier, everybody's experience is different, and everybody handles it differently. Um, and the suicide rate among veterans, as you know, is I think last I looked, it was like 22 a day. It's a,
What's
it's,
today?
it's an ungodly number. Um, and it can be dealt with, if you, and the thing is, it's like any other 12-step program. Number one is you got to admit to yourself that you need help. That's the first step. And, it's the second hardest thing I've ever had to do. The first hardest thing I ever did was quit smoking. Good gracious. I smoked all through Vietnam and high school, and, I thought I was never going to get off those, but, it takes motivation, and you got to have a reason, for doing things. And, for me, I almost went cold turkey, no patches, no anything. All it took was my daughter at the age of like 11, uh, watch me light one up, and she just started crying. I said, honey, what's the matter? She said, Daddy, I want you to walk me down the aisle when I get married. He said, if you keep smoking like this, you're not going to be around to do that. Well, for me, that's all it took. I threw them away at the next gas station I got to, um, and that was it. It, I don't know how to explain it, but
James, the Vietnam veterans came home and didn't get a whole lot of welcome, as you well know.
Right. Yeah.
But when the first soldiers started coming home from the Gulf Wars, we were the first ones there standing in line going, hey, welcome home, and so forth. And for many, many years, we put Vietnam behind us. You asked me now when I was in Vietnam, I'm going to tell you I was there last night.
Yeah.
We have worked many years, and now we are retiring, and now those dreams and so forth are jumping out, coming back and hitting us that we didn't have during the years because we were too busy.
yeah,
But
that's exactly right. That's what I was getting ready to say. I was trying to remember what point was I going to make? Where was I going with this conversation? It was like with my therapist. I said, "Isn't this odd that 50 years later I'm going through all this dark stuff?" He says, "No, we see guys like you all the time." He said, "You've spent the first part of your life worrying about making the mortgage payment, keeping the job." Um, Getting your kids raised, getting them in school, all this other stuff. Now that the kids are out of the home and all that's done, your brain has settled to a point now where all that dark matter can float to the top
Yeah.
and and come out. And boy, did with a vengeance.
yes, of course. But now, back then, you couldn't say anything about post traumatic. Well, the word didn't even exist. But having shell shock or all the different names they use for it and so forth, you couldn't even talk about it. But now we're open to the young men and women and going, hey, there's somebody here to welcome you, help you. When we came home, there was not a whole lot of organizations out there to help us. Now there are thousands that the veterans don't even know about. We're trying our best to get the word out to the veterans. There's help there. There is lots of help there if you just reach out, which is the hard part. Moses and Gloria drove me crazy till I finally went to the vet center. And the vet center is also mean a whole lot to me, especially my Tuesday meetings where I sit down and talk to other veterans and so forth. Vets of Vets has done the same thing with the dog. So when you're depressed and post-traumatic stress, your thoughts are basically on you. But when you have a dog sits there and looks at you with total love, it ain't on you so much, it's on the dog. And that helps. I mean, we're buddies. He and I can talk to each other, and he understands me and I understand him. It's kind of weird sometimes, but I know what he wants. He knows what I want most of the time. And that's the difference between having a dog. there are kind of different kinds of service dogs. The service dog is kind of complicated. A service dog like we have gives us a service. Then you have a service dog that's a therapy dog. If I remember correctly, the VA does not allow therapy dogs without prior permission, where they will let a veteran walk in with a therapy dog. So there is a difference. I believe a therapy dog cannot fly on an airplane, where a service dog can fly, even though both of them are somewhat a service dog. Right. It's kind of complicated and so forth that way. But everything I do, he's there with me, my family. He's there with all of us. He loves my family. He loves to play with them and so forth. So it means Vets of Vets and Tank have meant everything to me and to my family and my life, because without him, I probably wouldn't be here to be talking to you.
Wow, that's very powerful. Very powerful. Thank you for the testimony. And again, gentlemen, thank you for your time spending here with us today. So as we close out this interview, do you have any final words that you can impart to our listeners?
Well, if you know a veteran out there that's in need, please reach out to them and help them. It's always good to ask that question. Are you a veteran? We talk about. I wear a Vietnam veteran hat every time I'm out, because it gives me an opportunity to meet other Vietnam veterans, and we can talk, because we know how to talk to each other. Veterans talk different. In civilian life, you walk up to a guy, hey, you SOB, how you doing? I hadn't seen you in a while. He's going to give you a hug. Mm-hmm. You walk up to a non-veteran and say that, they're going to punch you. So we talk different, and we can talk to each other. So if you're out there and you are a veteran or know a veteran who's in need, or yourself, please reach out. You cannot do it by yourself. You've got to have somebody to hold your hand. And Vets of Vets may be what you need. It may just go into a counselor.
Indeed. Well, I would tell you that everything she said resonates with me. So,
you definitely can see Dan and I are passionate about what we do.
Indeed. Dan, do you have anything additional to add?
No.
Wonderful. Well, again, thank you for that powerful story, those powerful testimonies. And at this point, I'm going to turn the program back over to Wendy Wills, who is going to have a question and answer period. And before we give the closing remarks, and again, Dan, Bill, again, thank you for your service, and thank you for everything you continue to do for veterans on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, James, for your service and what you're doing.
Thanks, sir. Have a good one.
Thank you, James. And just thank you so much for giving them the opportunity to tell those stories. And it's very powerful, because a lot of times we don't talk about mental health. And I know that there was like you were saying, both of you were reiterating the fact that Vietnam veterans, when you returned from your service, you weren't received in the same way. But you still have taken the time to go out and talk to other veterans and receive them and help them if they're having some issues or struggling. So thank you for that. I just wanted to go back and talk about the process that you go through to get your service animal. How long is the process until you get your service animal? One of you.
It's somewhat. We have an 86 people waiting list. We get to the people as soon as we can. Some people drop out before we get a dog for them. We try to help them if they can go with another group, especially if they can afford it on their own. Some of the other groups that do not take care of everything. But once your time comes up, we will get you a dog. The veteran can kind of pick out what kind of dog they want, and we'll try to find them at rescue places. Tank came from the Rockweiler Rescue. Bailey came from rescue. So we'll try to put the veteran and the dog together. We have trainers that have their own business, but they volunteer to give us time. So they train every week, the veterans and so forth. But it all depends on our waiting list. It could be a while. it could be fairly quick. It's not something that's going to happen overnight because we do have a waiting list. Our biggest problem is trying to keep money going, raise enough money to keep it going. Right now we have 13 students going through.
In my situation, I can remember when I was working with Dr. Harris with that. She came right up front and said, you know, Dan says, you've got at least 3 months before we can get you into the program. And during that time, I want you to start looking for a service dog, start looking for a fur buddy. I said, okay. So she said, well, there's only one requirement. It says that has to come from a rescue. We want to save the animals. I said, okay. So I had an idea of what kind of dog I wanted. I wanted either a boxer or a beagle. And I got the best of both worlds. I got a mixed breed between a boxer and a beagle. And I went through, I was able to find Bailey through Carolina Boxer Rescue. Uh, Bailey had been moved around from foster home to foster home for the last 2 years, and she was picked up on the side of the road in Jacksonville. And when I found her, I was looking for a dog with a specific type of temperament. I certainly didn't want a puppy. I'm too old to be trying to keep up with a puppy. But I wanted a dog whose temperament was pretty much matched mine, something that I could keep up with, not a lot of too much energy, but one that could work with me. And the foster mom, bless her heart, drove up from South Carolina all the way up here to Durham to bring Bailey. And we met at Dr. Harris's home, and we were outside. There were a circle of about 10 or 12 people out there. And when Bailey came out of the car, it's amazing. She came directly to me. Didn't know me from nothing, but she came directly to me and sat at my feet. And I looked at my wife. I said, this dog knows I need help. And Dr. Morris gave Bailey a temperament test, and she was very careful to explain to me, if Bailey fails the temperament test, and I don't know what's involved in that, a veterinarian has to do it. Evidently, they touch parts of the animal that don't like to be touched and see what their reaction is. She brought Bailey back and said she passed with flying colors. I said, great. I said, I'll take her. So we went home with Bailey that afternoon. That was about 3 years ago. So the process for me took about 3 months. And like Bill said, it's a different length of finding that animal, the right animal for you will vary from person to person. But while we're here in terms of training, I want to give a shout out to that we have about 5 or 6 professional dog trainers at Vets to Vets United that donate their time and their talent to help training us and showing us training techniques, because the veteran and the dog are trained together as a team. We're both trained. So the trainer trains us on how to teach Bailey or how to teach our dog to do a specific task. And we go home, we have to work on that task. And it's just like anything else. You know, what you will get out of something, what you put into it. It takes a lot of work and a lot of diligence. I remember when I was training Bailey how to react to a shopping cart. I found a shopping cart on the side of the road that was abandoned by some homeless person. I picked it up, took it home, and I worked with Bailey walking beside me with that shopping cart until she was comfortable and knew she didn't need to be afraid of it. And that takes a lot of work to do that. So, and like I said, I shout out to our trainers. These people don't have to donate their time.
They have their own businesses, and they make as much as $200 an hour training dogs for themselves, but they donate their time to us. I think one of the things that we need to point out is in our process, the veteran and the dog train together. We and the trainers train the dog and the trainers train us. So it's a team between the dog and the veteran, both get trained because we have to know certain things and commands and so forth and how to train the dog. So we're trained right along with the dog for the 2 years. That's part of the process. It's your dog and you train. And if you're really into it, you come out being to a certain extent a dog trainer yourself, but it is the veteran and the dog work together, which helps build that team. So I can't give you an exact answer of how fast. It depends on. It would be nice if we could say, well, this person needs a dog more than this person and put them in the list, but it's kind of first come, first serve. But all dogs do not fit service dog criteria. Dr. Morris, as I call her Terry, she's real good, and once in a while she'll take a dog and it doesn't work out. We have to get the veteran another dog, and we rehome that dog to make sure that it is taken care of. So, but how long it's hard. It's everybody's different. Just if that answers your question. Wendy, you're muted.
It's wonderful because I'm getting a lot of feedback on the fact that the dogs are all rescue dogs, and and it's great that they actually that both of you, the veteran, and the dog, they get rescued. So that's the feedback that I'm getting. I do have one question, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. So this is going to be our last question before we end the program today. And we're running a little over, but it's this is great. First of all, we want to know if are you included in the state employees in our combined campaign? We have a combined campaign where we contribute to 501c3 organizations. So if you're not a part of that, I would encourage you to look and see if you could become a part of our state employees combined campaign.
We are a part of it.
Okay, you are? That's wonderful. So for everyone that's interested, this would definitely be an organization to look into. Final question is, how do, let's see, I was trying to find the question. Who makes a determination if you're eligible for a service animal?
Well, if you are a veteran and you need a dog, then you're eligible. We will ask if you have a counselor, we will ask to speak to the counselor to make sure that you are ready for a dog, but it's based